Welcome back to the shop. I'm Kirk Anderson. In this week's video, I'm making a spline jig for the table saw. Now I'll be making this jig out of 3/4 inch Baltic birch plywood. And the first thing to do is start cutting the pieces down on the table saw. Now this jig is going to run on the fence, not in the miter slots. So I need to measure how tall the fence is. And then I'll cut pieces to that dimension. Now this jig is going to be assembled with glue and screws. First thing is to get some glue on the piece and then spread it out. Now I'm just going to temporarily clamp this second piece just as a guide to put the top piece on. Now I've already pre-drilled the top piece. Now I just need to drill down into the side piece. And then I'll attach it with some 1 1/4 inch screws. Then I'll do the same thing for the other side. Again, just some glue, spread it out, pre-drill, and then drive in the screws. Now this is where I bumped the camera and I reset it without refocusing. Now with making this rack, I tried not to make it too tight so it would slide nicely over the fence, but I failed to do that. Now in order to fix this, that's so it will slide smoothly over the fence, I'm going to do two things. I'm going to sand it down, and then I'm going to apply some paste wax to the inside. Now once I sanded it and waxed it, it moves nice and smoothly over the fence. Now next is to attach the large vertical portion of the jig, and this will be attached just with glue and clamps. Again, put a good amount of glue on there, spread it out nice and evenly. Then once the piece is in position, I just apply some temporary clamp pressure until I get the majority of the clamps on there. And that should be enough clamps to get the job done. Now I'm cutting the support pieces at a 45-degree angle. Now in order to make sure that these pieces are at the correct angle, I'm going to use a draftsman triangle, and to make sure that that's correct, I'm using a speed square to position it. And then I'll just clamp down the draftsman triangle. And they'll be secured just again with glue and clamp pressure. Now for making the spline cut, it's real simple. You just put the workpiece in the jig, and it'll be a good idea to clamp the piece onto the jig, then raise the saw blade up to the desired height, and then move the jig over and just eyeball it to where you want the spline cut. And then make the cut. And then once that's done, it's time to cut the spline. And I'm using my thin cutting jig to do that. And then it's just a matter of putting the spline in. And it's just glued in. Put a good amount of glue on there, spread it out, and then slide the spline in. Now, the spline might need a little bit of extra coaching to get it seated all the way in. And a rubber mallet does that job well. Well, that's it. This jig is ready for operation. Now, there are still many different ways you can make spline cuts. You can use it on a table saw with other different types of jigs, or you can make a jig for the router table, or you can even cut them by hand. It's all up to you. But what a spline does, it helps reinforce a weak joint like this on the picture frame. But it also adds some elements to the picture frame. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And as always, all you woodworkers out there, just get out there and cut some wood.